Today will be a brief video on where I believe Gallows Hill actually may have been, and the contrary to where they say it currently is, and I'll show you both places and let you judge for yourself. I will also be doing a video on where I believe the Salem witches are buried. And thank you again. Enjoy. When I first moved to Salem, I had to find a laundromat, and I found Sunshine Express Laundry Center on Boston Street. Not just Boston Street, but 19 Boston Street, as you can see on the sign. When I went to do my laundry there, I would look up at the hill and see this massive towering apartment complex, and for some reason, the place gave me the creeps. It was like, I don't know, just like looking up at the house on Haunted Hill. Just super creepy creeps. I mean, it doesn't even belong there. This thing is so massive. If you go to downtown Salem, or if you find yourself at 19 Boston Street, you will understand what I'm talking about. But it wasn't until a few years later, after I had started using the laundromat, that I had read testimony from the witch trials that I found out that 19 Boston Street was the exact location of the McCarter's house, where Rebecca Eames was standing in 1692 when she looked up to the hill and saw folks waiting to be hanged. Historian Marilyn Roach made a great find while digging through the centuries-old records. It seems that in 1692, Rebecca Eames, another woman believed to be practicing evil witchcraft, was removed from her home in nearby Boxford. As her cart turned down Boston Street, she could see the gallows where they stood as she headed for Salem Village. Later on that day, Eames found herself in a preliminary trial. According to the report, the magistrate asked Eames if she'd witnessed the execution that morning. Her response was that she had been at the house below the hill, and that yes, she'd witnessed the folks at their hangings. The house below the hill was none other than John McCarter's house, and a house that stood all the way until 1890 at 19 Boston Street. The same 19 Boston Street where Sunshine Laundry exists today in Salem, Massachusetts. The most important quote here from Eames was that she was at the house below the hill, which means that Gallows Hill could not possibly be at Proctor's Ledge because there wasn't a house below that tiny hill. And even if there were a house below Proctor's Landing in 1692, it wasn't where Rebecca Eames was standing. She was standing at 19 Boston Street, where she was at the house below the hill, the McCarter house. And what hill are we talking about? The hill that currently has the apartment complex sitting on top of it, very eerily. The apartment complex is called Salem Heights, and it is at 12 Pope Street, Salem, Mass. So you can look this up for yourself. But I will take you on a walking tour up there so that you can see Salem Heights and why I believe that that is where the actual Gallows Hill is. Hi everyone, we're starting our walking tour off at 19 Boston Street. Yes, at the Sunshine Laundry Place, where John McCarter's house once stood, as well as Rebecca Eames, who had said she was at the house below the hill. So there's Gallows Hill up there. And I'm continuing down Boston Street. So this is the path that Rebecca Eames took when she came to the courthouse that day. So I'm continuing down Boston Street. And Boston Street connects here with Federal Street. And if you watched my Salem walking tour, Federal Street, we had stopped and I showed you where that was and said that that would connect you over to Boston Street or Gallows Hill. And we're now on Pope Street at the corner of Pope and Boston Streets. And we are walking behind the Walgreens. There's Walgreens. And this is what they're saying is where Gallows Hill was, at Proctor's Ledge. So I'm going to bring you to Proctor's Ledge. There's where I think Gallows Hill is. There's the Walgreens, way up there to Gallows Hill, and now we're going to go up to Proctor's Ledge. But you can see that it's quite the hike up the hill there. We're now at Proctor's Ledge, and there's a memorial here to the witches. Each of the accused and hanged witches, and of course Giles Corey, who was pressed to death, have their own little memorial. So this is Proctor's Ledge. I climbed up and I'm looking up at what I believe is Gallows Hill, which is above me right now. Behind the Witches' Memorial, if you walk back further, I believe that's where you find the actual Proctor's Ledge. So I climbed up here as well. Very glad I wore my sneakers. It's all fenced in up here, so in order to see Proctor's Ledge, you'd have to go to the other side. So I'm now looking through the fence, but you can get to Proctor's Ledge on the other side of Walgreens. Now I've already come down Proctor's Ledge, and we're now going to walk up the hill to 12 Pope Street. So again, we're coming from the Witch Memorial at Proctor's Ledge, and I'm heading up to 12 Pope Street, where I personally believe Gallows Hill is. So there's Salem Heights, 12 Pope Street. And I'm looking down at Proctor's Ledge, the Witches' Memorial. So this way you can kind of get an idea for how high these hills are. So heading up 12 Pope Street, I'm looking down, I'm climbing toward the top. You can see it's a little bit of a walk, but there's quite the drop-off to the houses and auto body shop below. And the street, I can see Boston Street from here. Much, much higher then Proctor's Ledge. At this spot right at the top, I really can't even explain what I felt, but I think this little patch of dirt here was really where Gallows Hill was. And when I zoom down, I can see the laundromat. So that would put me right where Rebecca Ames would have seen the folks going up for their hangings. And the bodies could have fallen down into the crevices below, like had been documented, that this is the real Gallows Hill. When you're up here, as you can see, there's a path down below the apartments. So I'm still looking way down at Boston Street where Rebecca Ames was. I'm just going to continue down this path just to see what's down here. There's the big Salem Heights apartment complex. But you can see this is all natural. There's tons of rocks and trees. And there's a field below. I walked to the back of Salem Heights Apartments, and right there where you see the Salem water tank with the witch, that's Gallows Park. And I'm looking down again, downhill. This area here, I believe, was Gallows Hill. And they just, paved over it, because that's fine. But a lot of times we cover up what we don't want people to know about, right? But definitely if you go and visit, check that spot out. So now I'm headed back up Boston Street, back to 19 Boston Street. And again, you can see how overwhelming that apartment complex is and how tall that hill is compared to tiny, tiny, tiny little Proctor's Ledge. That was behind the Walgreens. See, very amazing. Just massive structure there with the park down below. So there's my video on where I believe the real Gallows Hill is. Now, after you do your own research and go there and visit, let me know in the comments what you believe. But again, research can be skewed so that the audience thinks it's in a different place. So keep that in mind. But the testimony speaks for itself. If Ames were at 19 Boston Street at the house beneath the hill, she looked up, she would have seen exactly what you're seeing right now. Where that big apartment complex is, she would have seen a bunch of folks ready for the hanging. Just saying. So use your own feelings about this and get back to me. Please write in the comments what you think and what you feel and what you believe when you go and visit Salem, Massachusetts. And thanks for watching.